So let's look at a vocabulary term, the term like fractions. Like fractions are fractions that have the same denominator, so the same standard to what we're comparing our fractions. When we are adding or subtracting fractions, the denominators must be the same. We can only add or subtract like fractions. So let's look. And let's look at our money example. Let's say I have, I'm going to put my $5 bill as my comparison. This is going to be my whole. I'm going to compare other things compared to my $5 bill. So I'm going to look at a $10 bill and some $1 bills as my comparison. So my denominator is going to be 5. I have a $10 bill. I'm going to subtract $2 bills from it. Now, when I add or subtract, that doesn't change my standard or what I'm comparing it to. So it's still going to be 5. And then I just go from left to right. 10 minus 1, opposite sign, so I subtract. Answer has the same sign as the larger absolute value, so 9. 9 minus 1 is 8. So 8/5 is what I would have left. If I added them all together, 10/5 plus 1/5 plus 1/5, the standard is still the same, and I'd have 12 compared to 5. Okay, now let's look at my standard being a $100 bill. And let's look at some of this money I have here. I just went to the bank and got a bunch of different denominations. Let's see how all the money I have compares to the $100. So I have a 20, I have a 50, and I have a 5 and a 10 and 2 1s. So I have a 50, I have a 20, I have a 10, I have a 5, and I have 2 1s. So my standard is the same throughout my addition or subtraction, and I just go left to right, I'm adding, they're all positive numbers, 80, 85, I have a total of $87 to my 100. I don't quite have $100, so I have a fraction of my whole $100. When we add or subtract, we must have the same denominator. If we don't have the same denominator, we cannot add. Now notice that my denominator stays the same throughout. I may at the end have to simplify it. In this case, I don't. Yeah, I don't. 87 is not prime, by the way. 8 plus 7 is 15, and 3 goes into 15. So 87 is divisible by 3. But of course, 100 is not. So let's just do 1 or 2 more reviews, maybe using some signed fractions. Okay, so here we have like denominators, and it may help you in your bookkeeping or in your thinking about it to rewrite the problem, much like we did with our multiplication, with one fraction bar, keeping our denominator the same, and then just looking at the math that we have to do with our numerators. We're going to follow the same rules that we do for adding or subtracting signed numbers or integers. Opposite signs we subtract. So 4 is going to be my final answer. And the sign is going to have the same sign as the value of the larger absolute value. 5 has the larger absolute value, so my answer is going to be positive since 5 is positive. And then my denominator stays the same. Now I notice that I have a common factor here. I have a common factor of 2, and I also have a larger common factor of 4. And since I'm going to divide out, I want to divide out my larger factor. That's going to save me some work. And my final answer in a simplified fraction is 1/2. Okay, one more problem. Okay, so again, I'm just going to rewrite my problem because this technique may work for some people. Okay, so I have the same denominator, so I'm allowed to add or subtract. Opposite sign, so I subtract. I take the absolute value of each number. Absolute value of -9 is 9. The absolute value of 5 is 5. And since they're opposite signs, I'm going to subtract. My numerical answer is 4. And my denominator stays the same. Now I'm not done because I had opposite signs. I've got to make sure that my final answer has the correct sign. 9 has the larger absolute value and it's negative. So my final answer is going to be negative. And again, if I was $9 in the hole and deposited $5, I'd still be $4 in the hole. Now we can see that I can simplify this. 4 divided by 4 is 1. The negative sign stays with it. -4 divided by 4 is 1. When I divide my fraction to simplify it, I'm still using my rules for division. One negative sign, the final answer is going to be negative. So there's my final answer.